Confucius, 551 to 479 BC. Confucius was a Chinese philosopher, one of the three main philosophies in China, along with Taoism and legalism. And he and his philosophy are known for integrity and for strong morals, honesty. He also taught that the family and respect for the family went above even that of the government. And he taught of the need for social relationships and to teach how they should be governed. He thought tradition was super important to allow society to exist in a harmonious way. And he taught respect for elders was of utmost importance. Confucius's philosophy itself only came about after he had died. His students organized all of his teachings into books known as the Analects, which had aphorisms and other very clever sayings, as well as his philosophies on government and the proper way society should function. And this philosophy became the official philosophy of China for over 2,000 years. Confucius's first major job in government was as an advisor, and he ultimately resigned his position after a good while because his boss, the man he had been advising in the government, had been taking bribes, including money and women, and that just disgusted Confucius. He felt that virtue and honesty and integrity was what government should be based upon, and anything less than that was simply not acceptable. And so he resigned. While he now needed a job, he traveled throughout China looking for another government job, which unfortunately never came. But fortunately for us, he became a teacher during that time to make ends meet. And these teachings were the basis of what is today Confucian philosophy. The main goal of Confucius's teachings had to do with how to make a better society. And the idea on how to make a better society was based on the belief that social harmony, the collective, us, we, all of us, was more important than an individual and the individual's desires. This is the we versus me concept that you see springing up with Eastern versus Western. They were much more concerned about social harmony across all of society than the individual. Confucius stressed the need for social order in all relationships. He said society was held together with 5 different types of relationships. Husband and wife, a parent and child, so father, son, mother, daughter, etc., etc. A ruler and subject, like a boss worker or the president and a citizen. Sibling versus sibling, and friend versus friend. Now, especially the first 3, and even more so the numbers 2 and 3, these have specific responsibilities. And in Confucius's philosophy, these different relationships, they had behaviors that had to be taught and also followed. So in terms of respect, from a parent to a child, the elder should have respect. That's number 2. Ruler and subject, for example, he said that the relationship should be similar to tall grass and a wind. When the wind comes, the tall grass shall bend, meaning when the ruler says something, the citizens should obey. They should bend like the tall grass. These relationships should be taught, according to Confucius, and then people should follow these. So these rules would keep people in line. Filial piety, which means devotion to the family. Confucius felt that each person, each individual, had a responsibility to their parents, to their family, and even more than that, to their family name. And so, for instance, this responsibility would be achieved not just by taking care of your parents as they get older, because in Confucius's philosophy, you would not be moving away from your parents as you grow up, you would be staying there. So your responsibility isn't just taking care of them as they took care of you, but even after they're gone, you need to strive to bring honor to them. This honor would be through achievements, through your behavior, and ultimately, you have a responsibility to keep your family's name in honoring your father and mother. This sort of devotion to the family, he felt, would keep people in line and keep them valuing the correct things. The strength of a nation is derived from the integrity of its homes. So Confucius thought that if we started at home teaching these behaviors of respect, then obviously they would flow further throughout society. Confucius' political philosophy. He felt obviously that personal character and honesty was the key to society. He had resigned, if you remember, as the government advisor because of the improper conduct that was not beholden to a government advisor. Confucius feels very strongly that corruption in government would not be acceptable and isn't acceptable. And so that what we needed to do was realize that oftentimes the rich would take advantage of the people they're governing. The rich are going to achieve leadership, and then they're going to tax or basically do corrupt things to support themselves. In a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of. In a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of. A Confucius quote. Qualities of a good ruler. Confucius felt, obviously, that the people who should be the rulers are those who have integrity and honesty and wisdom and virtue. The people who are there for the right reasons, not just for ambition, not just to get rich off of others. And he thought that anybody who can demonstrate these qualities in the government, they should be able to get high up in terms of becoming rulers. It doesn't matter who they are or where they're from or how much money they have. So the poor could rise up from nothing to be the ruler if they actually show this integrity. He felt that the best sort of rulers did not need to threaten and bully others to obey. One of the other major philosophies of China was legalism, which basically beat people to keep them in line, if I've ever told the Singapore caning story. Confucius felt rather than actually threatening people to keep them in line, you had to gain their respect and loyalty. And you could do that. If you showed that you listened and you cared and you had integrity, if you basically as a role model showed the way you should behave, others would follow you, he felt very strongly. Another quote of Confucius, the virtuous man is driven by responsibility. The non-virtuous man is driven by profit. When you look at our country right now, some people get involved in government or in business to help the world or help the country, or while others get involved for definitely reasons dealing with their own self-interests in regards to profit. The importance of ritual. Confucius felt that one way to teach integrity and honor was to model it through having participation of different traditional rituals of the state or in the case of the church. These ceremonies, these traditions, these rituals, he felt had a positive influence. It would be modeling things that the way we should behave in society. And he said if you look at when the social order breaks down, when these rituals leave us, that's when you have a breakdown of your society as a whole. He felt that we could model this sort of sincere behavior through these rituals and ceremonies, and through conditioning. You'll grow up your whole life with these different ceremonies, these different rituals, these different traditions. They would mean something to you, and we could sort of condition you to behave. What would be the examples of traditions today? Well, religious traditions. Clearly, in Confucius, there were religious traditions as well. Political traditions, saluting the flag, the national anthem. There's a variety of different ones you could think of. Social family traditions, the whole concept of graduation as actual walking across the stage with the black robe. Sunday dinner, some Italian families have the whole large family come over for dinner. These sort of traditions, he felt very strongly, these rituals should be kept and used to teach future generations. If we lose them, we will lose future generations. Confucius said, you know what, laws, they punish people after they've already done the crime. But a ritual can actually prevent the bad action from occurring. we will cause a positive reinforcement to people as they grow up, shaping their character, and by shaping their character, they won't act out. This ultimately reinforces a concept that Confucius talked about quite often, that sincerity and honesty is so important in everything you do. Taking the tradition seriously with reverence and sincerity is how you should engage all of the major things in your life. You should bring complete focus and an honest effort with sincerity to everything you endeavor to try. Confucius said it's a mistake to do things simply in order to please others. Unfortunately, most of us do that. We are puppets to other people's views. Rather than doing things just to please or impress others, he said we should do things because they are the right thing to do. He is definitely an ethics, moral philosopher. We will touch more upon them when we get to Immanuel Kant and John Stuart Mill coming up. The superior man thinks of virtue. The small man thinks of comfort. I think most of us, most of our lives, think of comfort. We want to be comfortable. But sometimes it's a little more uncomfortable to do the thing that's right. Now, the Analects, as I referenced earlier, were the book that listed a lot of his different quotes and his philosophies. And here's a number of his quotes in these next few slides. Probably the most famous of Confucius' quotes is this: "What you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others." That's the earliest form of what we call the Golden Rule. It's probably the earliest known basis of it is right here. It appears in almost every religion. This is about 577 BC, so this is probably his most famous quote. Another quote you most likely have heard: "The man who asks the question is a fool for a minute. The man who does not ask is a fool for life." As a teacher, I love it when students ask questions because I have something to work off of. And anybody who holds back a question, ultimately they're penalizing themselves. I should pause here for a moment to mention that if you go onto the internet, most of the greatest quotes in the history of the world are often credited to Confucius. But in fact, he did not say most of these quotes. I've done the best I could to find quotes that I think he actually did say and were in the Analects. But like I said, you can go online and find lots of very clever things attributed to him. And you can find lots of funny things attributed to him through memes. Everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it. I think this is a concept that we've been coming back to in regards to perception. I think just by switching your perception, you can see beauty in the simplest things. And ultimately, you can see beauty when your eyes aren't clouded by all of your desires. When you get out of your mind and you get into the present world, maybe you can see the beauty in all things. Another Confucius quote: "If I am walking with two other men, each of them will serve as my teacher. I will pick out the good points of the one and imitate them, and the bad points of the other and correct them in myself." Ultimately, it's a perception that you really can learn from everyone. The quote I use a lot is, "The teacher will appear when the student is ready," meaning when you truly put up your antenna and realize everything and everybody can be a teacher, that you can actually be a student and learn continually. "He who chases two rabbits catches none." A quick little one, which you may have seen in a fortune cookie. There's a lot of true and not true Confucius quotes that have ended up in fortune cookies, but this is an actual one. "He who chases two rabbits catches none." Concept being the focus we need in life. We need to truly put our focus on one thing from time to time to truly achieve it. If we spread ourselves out too much, we ultimately cause ourselves a lot less effectiveness. If you think of the idea between focus and multitasking, I think ultimately concentration on one thing is something that is lacking today. "It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop." Confucius definitely taught that ultimately a mistake only becomes a mistake when you give up. And a final quote, I believe: "It is easy to hate and it is difficult to love. This is how the whole scheme of things work. All good things are difficult to achieve, and bad things are very easy to get. I'm not sure if he said this, but I like this sentiment quite a lot. Ultimately, Confucius today. Many people would say that his philosophy is a little bit obsolete. It doesn't really fit in. We like our freedoms. The whole idea of having to respect somebody older just because they're older, that doesn't ring true to a lot of people. They'll say respect needs to be earned. They don't like the idea of these weird, hokey, old traditions and rituals. They don't necessarily think the ideas of respect that Confucius and integrity are things that maybe are relevant today in society. While others might say maybe they're more relevant than ever. Final quote, if your plan is for 1 year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. If your plan is for 100 years, educate children. Thank you very much for listening.